We were gone, and now we're back with lots of episodes. Look, we have another one. It's like a week after, not even, I think it's less than a week after the first episode of season 3. And here we are. Sell me this pro, B-Dog in the mix. And we're changing it up today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Blast Bounty season 2, because B-Dog, this is a big one. Lots of tier 2 teams coming into the mix, lots of tier 2 players that we get to see, right? So this is like a better showcase, I'd argue, than Cologne to see some of the new talents in this season of competitive Counter-Strike.
Yeah, it's especially in tier 2, tier 3, right? And I think it's an interesting format that Blaster put forward, because obviously you can challenge the better teams because they've got a bounty on their heads and you can win more prize money, and that inherently affects VRS. But in a weird way, if you just do well in the tournament in general, you're going to probably do far better if you're one of these tier 2, tier 3 teams, rather than go into maybe fight like a Vitality or go and fight like a Spirit. Just if you stay in your lane and you go under the radar, I actually think you're probably going to get more VRS and more prize money just from staying in the tournament longer.
You know what makes me sad is I agree with you, and I think for many teams that is the strategy, but it kind of takes away from what Blast Bounty is supposed to be, right?
Yeah, no, for sure it does, and that's a shame. But I don't know, maybe if they can tweak it a little bit. I don't know how they'd tweak it, I suppose. Oh, I'll tell you what they could do. It could be weird, but maybe rather than the teams deciding who they play against, maybe it could be like, you know, like in football, like the FA Cup, where they've got like all these balls in the middle, and you pick one out and you say, okay, well, this team's playing this team. And then maybe if you take both bounties from each team, and then it's like an overall one over the head. So, okay, so this match is worth both the bounties. That could be interesting. I just thought about that just now.
I actually think that's quite fun. There we go, Blast. Just giving away tournament ideas. Take that, tweak it for 2026.
And if you want me to work it, Blast.
Off topic, do you want to know something funny? I've realized that every podcast I've recorded in the last 2-3 weeks, I think it's like maybe 3 or 4, in every single one, at some points, one of us in said podcast has done what you just did, where we're like, well, you should hire us. I think I try to sell B-side baddies as like a pre and post show segment. Then feed the trolls. I try to get JL and Thorin on a desk, but then said that only Starladder could hire us, but Starladder should hire me because it was my idea to have JL and Thorin on the like. And now you've just done it. Times are tough out there, friends. For broadcast talent, times are tough. Let's just be honest. If you haven't picked it up, and when we say times are tough, we've been very lucky because our tough times have been made a little less tough by a sponsor for the show who does things. And you can watch this ad now, and then you should click the link below because times are tough and B-Dog still needs furniture.
This is a robbery! Tell me where you keep your expensive skins, or I'll blow his brains out!
John, please, don't!
Well, I mean him! What the? Where are the normal skins?
Guys, the best skins are on Skin Club.
What are you talking about?
Here, look.
Oh, no way!
The best skins are only on Skin Club.
I mean, that was one hell of a way to put an ad in a podcast. I need to work on these a little bit, I think.
My favorite bit about it was you're like, yeah, this does things, and you should click on it. Like, yeah, cool, thanks. That's really informative, actually.
I don't know what else to do because technically we are being paid to run the ad, but then they gave me a link, so I was like, I feel like I should tell people to click the link. I don't know how this works. I've never done this before, but here we are. Let's move on. Talking about Blast Bounty. So it's online as well. So I do feel like there is a benefit to some teams being able to play online, because playing like NAVI or Vitality online is a lot less scary than when you're in studio against them. And also we've notoriously seen online matches can cause an occasional upset, right? So there is a benefit for some of these lesser known teams coming into this too. I mean, I guarantee one of them's going for Navi. I'm sure of it too. They've probably found a hole in that armor and are hoping that they can claim a bigger prize.
I'd say so. I think teams that maybe you can challenge as the underdogs, I think Pain's probably quite a good one at the moment because they've been really hit and miss. Obviously, Navi, I think, is a good shout. I think Aurora also is right there for the taking. Obviously, Xantares will probably be back for this tournament because it will be online, but that's another interesting one. I don't know where Liquid falls in this, whether they're a challenger or one of the top teams, but you could go for them. Legacy ranked 17th. Maybe they're in the top conversation. There's definitely a lot of teams you could angle for. I even go against Virtus Pro. Like there's a lot of teams in that top division where you can look at it and you can really argue a case for it.
Okay, we have to talk about Virtus Pro though, because I got to take you back. I got to take you all the way back to, I think it was did we do this in season 1? I'm not 100% sure, but there was a time where on Sell Me This Pro, we did a whole piece on Ultimate versus IC.
It was the first episode.
And both of us were like full on pro IC scrap Ultimate. And now I feel bad because I just think IC looks terrible in VP. And wow, if there was an actual way to invest in players, we lost someone a lot of money.
Yeah, or did Electronic lose someone a lot of money? Let's pass the buck. And also, if you are doing the Ultimate versus IC thing, which we do keep bringing reference to because it is valid, Ultimate's still not performing to the level, right? So yeah, I think it's a shame for IC because I just feel like the culture in VP is just not very good. And again, if we're using football analogies, then I think you look at Virtus Pro and actually compare that to what Man United are going through at the moment, which is basically their whole culture is just rotten to the core. And it's sort of become rotten because they lost their identity with having James leave, and then you've got Electronic coming in. And Electronic was supposed to be the guy that was going to change absolutely everything in this team. They were going to go back to their winning ways. They were going to hopefully go kick on and perform to the very best. And now it's a complete change of leadership. It's a complete change of dynamic of personnel. And I think IC is a victim of that. I will agree, though, he's not been playing to the level he should be playing. I think if he was in tier 2, I still think it would probably be like a waste of potential. Like, I'm glad he's got this exposure in tier 1. And also, if you take a look at it, small sample size as well. Right? He's played 95 maps in 6 months. So it's not the biggest of sample sizes, in my opinion, for him yet, although it is bordering on 100 maps, which is kind of like quite a lot. But I look at it, I want him to do better. I think he can do a lot better in his decision making, especially in the mid round. But I feel like, again, the reason why his decision making in the mid round to late round is a little bit muddled is because the whole identity of VP is still a little bit muddled, and there's a lot of extenuating factors. But with that being said, the all of the blame doesn't just go away from IC, and it is true. I will take a little bit of an L on this. That's fine, but it's like he does need to step up, and he does need to, I think, critically evaluate what he's doing in certain moments, and then also be ready to actually try and do new things, because I feel like IC is recycling his same little tricks over and over again because he knows they're safe, and he probably knows that he's probably not going to get shouted at by Electronic. And then they're the safe ones, and then therefore he's more of a shell of himself. So I would like him to either move, but then he'll probably go back to tier 2, or be more confident in himself.
I think Virtus Pro is broken. And I don't see a world where we fix that for this. I mean, it's called this. I'm calling this like the second season of CS2 for 2025, because we now have like actual defiable seasons. And I don't think Virtus Pro is going to make any changes at this point. They're kind of what they've got is probably what they're going to work with for the next few months. So they're a nice option if you're a tier 2 team and want to take them on. Before we get into some of the players and teams that we want to keep an eye out on that are maybe lesser known for people that are tuning into Blast Bounty, I do want to talk about some of the new names that we had a chance to see briefly in Cologne, which we're going to see again, because this is something that I kind of like, was that we got to see a lot of tier 2 players step up into the big leagues, B-Dog. So of course, my first one, and I need to preface this by saying we have recorded this earlier than what you are watching, which means we are slap bang in the middle of IEM Cologne. We have a very small sample size to work with. So some of the stuff we're going to say may change by the time you watch this episode, because we'll see more of these players play. But I mean, first off, let's talk about NAVI and that JL change. What do you think about bringing up the NAVI Junior player? What is it looking like? Have you had a chance to see them? What do you think?
So I watched the FaZe game, and I think it's actually really, really interesting. And I have somewhat of a hot take, but it's a hot take in terms of I'm just gonna say it, and then I'll leave it, and then I'll sort of explain what I mean. Sure, that's fine. I think, obviously, we've seen 2 big debuts from Academy graduates. We've seen Makazze go into NAVI, promoted from the Academy, and we've seen Kyousuke come into Falcons. I actually think, for their development in their career as players, it would have been better if Makazze went to Falcons and Kyousuke went to NAVI. There you go. There's the hot take. And I'll tell you why. It's literally because I think Kyousuke would develop an awful lot. The Kyousuke's trajectory is very similar to Donk in terms of Kyousuke gets away with a lot because of his aim. I think it'd be really interesting if Kyousuke went into NAVI, was then under that strict tutelage of Blade, and then he's got that entire team dynamic, and that then starts to shift. And I think what's interesting is NAVI, when they replace JL, they're looking for someone with direct firepower. Immediately, both Kyousuke and Makazze, to be completely transparent, they bring that. But Kyousuke would bring that immediately. That's immediately a fix. And then it would also refine him a little bit more into a better player. Now, why would Makazze, in my opinion, be better in Falcons? Well, firstly, it's good for the narrative switch, but also, you look at the way that NAVI Junior, or I suppose ex-NAVI Junior, were playing, really structured. Coolio had a very good system going on there, and obviously Blades is going to be a lot more intricate. But I think what was cool for ex-NAVI Junior is it wasn't just Makazze that was stepping up. He was having help from everyone, but also that helped him elevate his decision making. And I do think, again, in tier 1, for some of his decision making, obviously it's going to be a little bit sloppy, but he's also, for him learning an entire new system and then having to refine, and he can't always rely on his aim that much. But imagine if he was in the opposite situation with Falcons and he was swapped in with Manassi, with Nico, he wouldn't be the one needing to frag all the time. But I think that would be a softer approach from Makazze in a weird way compared to Kyousuke, because I think Kyousuke has naturally got that raw ability, and I think he'll be able to turn it on a lot quicker. But I think tactically, he needs that push. So that's why I think it'd be interesting in a hypothetical world if they swap places.
I really like that take, actually. And I think it's something we need to put a pin in, and in a couple of months when we've seen these 2 players play a little bit more in these rosters, come back to and see how that's played out and if it's actually gone the way that you're thinking.
I didn't actually answer you. Sorry, I wanted to say that I did see the NAVI FaZe game, and I thought Makazze very solid in map 2, map 3. Obviously nervy map 1, but I mean, it's your first game. Hey, you're in IEM Cologne, you're going to be a little bit nervy. But I think solid. I think obviously it will take him a little while to dial into what Alexi and Blade both want, but that's going to be very natural. I think he's a very solid, capable pair of hands, and to be fair to him, coming from NAVI Junior, coming from the same culture that would have been from your academy team to your first team, it is a good fit, and he will kick on. I think it will take him a little while longer than Kyousuke, mind you, but give him time. The favorite classic phrase of Brandon on this show: give him time. It's true though. Give him a few events and he'll be very good.
I'm curious to see how that plays out. I'm worried that he's not the star power Navi needed. The moment you said the Kyousuke swap, I was like, they kind of needed that. They needed a big player. Like, they needed that player that can come in and kind of be a difference maker. And it actually... It would have worked. I think so.
Yes, but remember why Navi had all that success as well, though, is because every single one of those players could be the star player. So actually, it isn't just all on Makazze as well. It's on Ime doing better. It's on Wonderful stepping up as well. I think that's why they got to so many grand finals, because we had a really good performance out of JL. Then the next map, it was Wonderful popping off, and then we had Ime in like the crucial rounds when they needed it the most. They could always rely on Ime. They can't rely on these people anymore. They've got a good baseline, but their ceiling, I think because we expect so much, I think they expect so much now based on how they did in previous, they need to keep matching it, and that's really hard to do because obviously you set the bar very, very high. So I think it isn't just all on Makazze for Navi, but that's why I think maybe the conversation at the Switch would be interesting, just because you would get that little extra 5 to 10% more immediately, which maybe Navi need immediately. I don't know how they're going to look long term, obviously, because we're not psychic.
No, we're not psychic. I wanted to kind of get into the Navi conversation, but it pulls away from why we're actually here, so I'm not going to do that. But I will keep it going Navi related, because one of the teams that we will get to see at Blast Bounty is now called NAVI, ex-NAVI Junior. And this was obviously the team, the academy team in sort of tier 2, who was just, they were dominating the space. They had a couple of wins under their belts. This team looked really good. Lots of conversation coming into the second half of the year that they were going to get picked up by a big org. They should be picked up by a big org. The core is really, really good. So for someone who's not watching tier 2, who's probably not paid attention, and there's lots of them, they just focus on tier 1. Why do we talk about NAVI Junior, or sorry, ex-NAVI Junior with such high regard?
Because they play very proper CS. They have extremely good fundamentals. I think, as I said a little bit earlier, Coolio, the way that this team is set up reminds me a lot of, I think people might resonate to this, when Mouse and XT were kicking about right before they all got promoted to Mouse. In terms of the base level is very good on these guys. The potential of them is very good as well. Like Demon, we speak about Makazze, you actually hold Demon in the same regard. Demon is basically the same player, just a little bit more inconsistent, but very, very, very strong firepower wise. You've got Krebeni, who's been playing officials since he was 16 years old. He's now 20. In fact, one of my first ever casts as a commentator was Krebeni in Blink, which is kind of fun. And I think Krebeni's the most intelligent player on this team. I think that's why he's so exciting to watch, because he always is one step ahead of his opponents. Semtree, he reminds me, we've spoken about Alcaren and Spirit Academy before on this channel. For those a little bit unfamiliar, Semtree potential is ridiculous. Reminds me a lot of when Headtrick was in Navi Junior. That's probably the best comparison that we've got so far. But obviously, Headtrick then moved to become an AWPer. Semtree is a direct AWPer. So, okay, let's maybe take it one step further. Headtrick, when he was initially AWPing on NIP, and it was like, oh, okay, this guy's quite good. And then it's, oh, okay, this guy's sort of fallen off a little bit. Semtree's very up and down. Semtree's like a yo-yo on this team. But online will favor him a lot more. Dzeegs just won the European Esports Championships in Kosovo with Lithuania. And he was out there. I spoke to him. Lovely bloke, that aside. He, again, just all these players have got very good potential. They've got a very good understanding of the game. They play Counter-Strike properly. They don't play this sort of like tier 2, we're just going to wide swing everything and hope. Sometimes they do if they feel very confident and they can get the jump on their opponents. But just go look at the results. Go look at the events that they've been performing in and they've been winning, because they've qualified. They had a chance to maybe qualify through to Pro League. They've obviously qualified through to Bounty. I think Navi made a really sensible decision, by the way, of just saying, look, we don't want to hinder these guys because of the BRS system. We want to actually give them an opportunity, which, thank you, Navi, because that is fantastic. I wonder if they're sort of giving them payment on the side. I don't know. I imagine not, because they're obviously not together anymore.
Cannot.
They legally can't. They can't. But maybe they gave them a nice little package, so it's almost like you've got like a couple of months payment just in case an org doesn't pick up an org app, so you should pick them up though. I don't know. I don't know how legal things work. I imagine they can't legally, but if I was Navi,
at the moment, I think if Navi was giving them money, then it's immediately a conflict of interest.
Yeah, no, I'll rephrase. Maybe if they gave them money like as a redundancy package, there you go. I reckon that would be a nice way to do it. That's what I would do. To kind of tie them over and be like, look, we want you to have these events, but also we want to support you, even if we can't support you. So here you go. There was rumors of Cloud9 picking them up as well.
Yeah,
but they're not, unfortunately. But yeah, I went really off tangent there. But anyway, NAVI Junior, really aggressive, really cool team, really smart players. They're exciting. Please watch them. Please support them, because they're a fun team to watch.
I love that. I love that explanation. Okay, so let's keep going now, because the other big story, which is something that I do think we need to talk about, tier 2, ENCE. And obviously they lost a player to NIP, and then what I think it was like this week, Glaive announces he's benched and a free agent in 2026, but he's out of ENCE. SDY is now going to be IGLing for the team. What do you make of these shakeups?
Necessary evil, probably for ENCE, if I'm being completely honest. The in-game leading for Glaive just wasn't working, and I don't actually think that was Glaive's fault. I think it wouldn't even be players not buying into the plans, but I think sometimes the rounds are a little bit overcomplicated for ENCE, and I think this is actually quite an exciting change for ENCE. And people would be like, "Oh, SDY in-game leading, that's interesting." Well, remember that SDY used to in-game lead on Monty before Monte obviously became UK, and we love it because it's Gizmy. But when Monte were
He was
at
a
the
good
peak of their
IGL.
success, he was a really good IGL. And what's fun is you take a look at the players on this team. I would say xKacpersky, but he's not here anymore. He's on loan to NIP. You've got Rigon now, really aggressive, very similar player profile to xKacpersky. You've got Nachu, who wants to be aggressive, was always quite aggressive on Mouse and NXT. And then I think Glaive wanted the, and this is probably a combination of a lot of the players' ideas all coming together. But if I had to look at it from an outside point of view and then point fingers, which I'm not trying to do, but I think it almost felt like at times ENCE was trying to play the perfect CS, and you can't do that anymore in Counter-Strike 2. You can't do all of this fancy stuff that made Astralis who they were. And Glaive was trying to, I think, really lean away from that a little bit. Like, we did have some explosive rounds in there for ENCE. We did have some mid-round in that often led into lurks, but it was Glaive taking a lot of the initiative, and because his firepower, again, is very inconsistent, it made it more of a liability than a potential thing. But where you've got Rigon, SDY, what's his name, Nature, I think that's a really good core that is it bears a lot of similarity to old Monty, sort of with Krasnal. I feel like Krasnal and Nature are very similar player profiles. I think Rigon is probably the closest to Dembka you're gonna get if we're doing sort of like for like on the old teams. And then Poddy is no Warrow. Like, I want to be clear, but Poddy has been actually getting a lot better this year in particular. So I think actually this team's really interesting. I think this team's cool. The fact that they've got Rig on, I think it actually makes a lot of sense now that I'm actually talking about it and thinking out loud about it. But initially, obviously, you're going to be, the nostalgia is going to be, oh, why did they get rid of Glaive? But I think, unfortunately, necessary evil. I hope Glaive can come back in some capacity. I don't know what he's going to do. Maybe coach.
Maybe coach. I think that should be the move. xKacpersky, though, he's on NIP. We've seen them at Cologne. I really like this upgrade. I think it's a huge upgrade for the team, and it looks really good for them. From what we've seen in Cologne so far, I like it.
I just don't understand what the point of Young Ninjas was, because why have you got this academy team, and then you promote them for a little bit, then you put them back in the academy, and then you say, oh, we really want these guys to be the future of Counter-Strike, and then you just sell them on. And then you sell xKacpersky to ENCE, and then you just bought him back. Like, that's, to me, that is incredibly mismanaged. I guess NIP have been mismanaged over the last couple of years, and now they're trying to really turn it around. And sorry, NIP fans, or NIP if you're watching this, but it just feels silly. And I'm going to just stare you in the face and say the elephant in the room. Like, that whole project just feels silly. But I do like the fact that they've realised their mistake and have gone back and got him, because he's a good player. And look, immediately, notice how here the in-game leadership, where NIP are a lot more of an aggressive team, that favours him a lot more, because that's what they used to do on young NIP. So yeah, it's cool. I think it's a good change, and he's doing really well. And they just knocked Heroic out, didn't they? That's when we're recording this, guys. NIP have just knocked Heroic out.
Well, there you go. I in defense of NIP, and I probably misquoting here. If memory serves me, when we spoke about them sort of rebuilding and fighting their way through, I had them on another podcast. My understanding was that Exist and Snappy have full control of that lineup. So like management is kind of going, okay, you tell us what you need, and we'll stay out of this, for want of a better term, which could be why you see some of the weirder decisions now, because they're sort of calling those shots. But again, I may be completely incorrect. I like the shots they're calling though. So long may it continue, right? It does look, I liked what I saw in Astana. I like what we're seeing now. I think that they're starting to, I always think Snappy's going to lead the underdog. So they could be that sort of the surprise, if you like, from tier 2 that occasionally gets into these events. And maybe at a Blast Bounty, they're a team that could take on a Navi or a VP and potentially cause an upset.
I think the balance of the team is really good. I think for Arosdose, I think it's a little bit unfortunate because I think Snappy wanted him to be a little bit more aggressive than he's used to being on Saw, because you've got like Shush, who sort of wants to be maybe that lurker a little bit more on T sides, and that was probably clashing a little bit. xKacpersky will just sort of be like your workhorse, who'll go do whatever is best, because again, he's still young as well, wants to prove himself. So I think that matches up quite well. I think that complements Jerks quite well as well, because I think you could see sort of some friction sometimes, especially on T side, between him and Rosdos, not directly, but in terms of the numbers. And I think xKacpersky will give Jerks more space, and then we'll start to see Jerks be that star player we're used to him being on Saw.
Let's take a look at some of the other teams. For me, Fnatic ? What is going on there? Actually, B-Dog, maybe that's the better way to phrase this. I don't understand.
Okay, well, as of 10 minutes ago, Fnatic have just added CYPHER. So there you go. That's what they're doing.
I was not aware because I was, setting up the podcast. All right. Well, 10 minutes ago, let's talk about that decision. What do you think about that?
I don't know, if I'll be completely honest. This is a really interesting one. Because the MO for CYPHER, if you ever watch CYPHER play in tier 2, or I suppose at the Paris Major, is he wants to entry. This guy does not sit still. He doesn't ever think about decisions. So he just doesn't. He just wants to run and gun. And I can say that because I know him personally. But like he just,
I say that, I just want to interrupt. Yeah. I say some horrible things about Cadian all the time. I'm like, I can say this because the one time we were on a desk together, and I'm waiting for the day I get a message where he's like, you need to shut up now. But anyway, continue. Your friend CYPHER, how did that go?
Yeah, look, he's just really aggressive player. I think this is actually really interesting that you've brought this up. I think next to ENCE, because this actually again is a similar thing to where they're generating more space for their players. Matties and Blame were very similar players, and I think you didn't ever have on this team a player profile that was a direct entry, because let's be realistic here, Blame wants to go in second and he wants to clean up, and Matties, I think, was thrown into entry roles where Matties, again, is a similar player where you don't want him entry in. So then that fell a lot on Fear, and I think Crims was starting to do some entry in, and then that felt really weird because Crims shouldn't be entry in, and your in-game leader at times shouldn't be entry in, and it just created this really bizarre dynamic where you didn't have a consistent player that was more than happy to go in first. So I think from a role cell point of view, I think that the CYPHER edition is interesting because it fulfills that requirement. With that being said, is this Fnatic just signing another player and then what are they going to do with it? How many more signings are Fnatic going to make where we look at it and we think, oh, okay, and then they just disappoint again and again? That's the worry. How many more signings are Fnatic going to make before they finally bench Crims? I was
waiting for you to say it, but yeah,
that's the next one. So I think it's interesting.
Crims has like 9 lives at Fnatic though. Like he's just
20.
Yeah, 30. Like he's just never. It's until I'm presuming it's until Crims goes, I want out. Like at what point does that happen? So
yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah. I don't expect much from them, straight up.
I will say Crims has actually been playing very well in the last 3 months. Like to give him credit, he's actually playing pretty decently. So yeah, that's what I think. I think from a roles point of view, it makes sense. I think there will be instances where CYPHER will overextend too much, and it'll be interesting to see whether he gets that trained out of him. And under the various in-game leaders he has worked under, he hasn't had that trained out of him. So I wonder if Fear can be that guy to do that with Independent. We shall see, but it will give Fnatic a direct like front to back approach of how to approach rounds. So let's see. It's a good opportunity for him. He needs to, and it's a good opportunity for CYPHER. And again, CYPHER, I feel like, needs to make the most of these opportunities because it's one of those where at Paris we spoke about how much potential he does have, and he does have a lot of potential. And maybe this is the roster he can realize it with.
Okay, so we've spoken about all the teams I want to talk about, all the players I want to talk about. This is meant to be a partnership here, but I just kind of took over. So when
That's
we
fine.
go into Bounty, because I know that you came in here, if you were to like draw people's attention, who are you, in terms of the team, the tier 2 teams that are coming in, who are you most excited to see in this particular event?
There's 3 I want to talk about, but I'm going to touch on one like extremely briefly because that's more of like a passion pick. And then the 2 that I'm actually very excited to see how they do at this event is the 2 Ukrainian teams, like TNL and Passion UA. Because TNL have just been going from strength to strength to strength. And I think a big part of that is because they have acquired Kane, who was the coach of Passion UA when they went on that Shanghai Major run. He now isn't coaching, but he's still heavily involved in TNL. He's now like their esports head or like their manager for that organization. But I think he brought an awful lot. And actually, a good timing to bring this in is because I think this, again, another roster change with Fnatic. Please, can we just have a period of like 4 months where they don't go through a roster change? Because I want to see actually how much of the in-game leadership was Fear in Passion UA versus how much of it was helped out by Kane. Because I just think it's interesting from a, again, outsider point of view where you only watch the games, but you have somewhat context where Passion UA were doing really, really well. Obviously, their team gets picked apart after the Shanghai Major. Fear goes to Fnatic. Fnatic that has got Matties, Blameth, Crims. Sure, it had Bermilov at the time, but Bermilov was okay. I think, again, Bermilov unfairly scapegoated. They've had Jambo for like 3 months, and they didn't win anything, they didn't do anything. So it's like, okay. And you look at TNL, and it's like, oh, hi, Kane, you've now joined, and you're winning everything. And now you qualify for Pro League, and now you've qualified for Blast Bounty. Oh, that's really interesting. So that's a hypothetical, or that's a rhetorical that I'm just going to leave there. In terms of TNL, in terms of players that are ridiculous. I mean, this is just Passion UA 2.0. You've got Ken, that is a ridiculous player. Davey, that is unbelievable. Flyrax used to be a 1.35, 1.3 player. Now he's currently just sitting at a respectable 1.1. Like every single one of these players is just really interesting to watch. The structure and the entire game plan, the identity of this team feels very Passion UA of last year. Really aggressive, wants to get up in your face, but also leads with utility. In moments will create condition on one side of the map and then will just immediately hit you with the complete counter. Really good understanding of the game, really good awareness of the game just because I've been playing so many officials. I like this team. I'm excited for this team. And yeah, TNL, keep your eye out over the next few months because they'll be featuring on your screens regularly if you're tier 1 enjoyers. And I'm sure they'll be here with me in tier 2 as well. And they'll get even better in tier 2 because they're going to have the tier 1 reps. Online won't phase them. The LAN will be an interesting one.
Just to add on to that, you mentioned those 2 Ukrainian teams. There's a third as well, obviously, which I think is just kind of cool to highlight. Bait as well, full Ukraine lineup, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just like so much talent in the mix for anyone who's Ukrainian Counter-Strike fans, which I am, because they just breed some of the best players, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. You've almost got, I think Bait really inspired like the next generation for Ukrainian Counter-Strike, and obviously Monte as well with some of their players. I think has really had a big hand in it. And obviously speaking of ex-Monte, we have got Passion UA, where you actually, I want to talk about Kvem. Like, I don't want to talk about Waro, Demka, and Chikazmo from people that you know. Kvem is unbelievable. This guy has always been touted. If you are familiar with Tier 2 and Tier 3, which I'm gonna speak like you're not, but I'm hoping some of you have started to watch a little bit. This guy, Kavem, has always been regarded highly by peers in Tier 2 and Tier 3. And he's never, for whatever reason, he's never had opportunity. I think he was in contract jail for a really long time with ICLA. I think it was like 2 years where this guy wasn't allowed to play with anyone else because ICLA were like, no, you can't do this, even though it was weird. I don't want to get in trouble with ICLA. Anyway, he was in contract jail. And we knew as soon as he'd get on a team, if he got the chance, it'd be really good. Obviously, he went and played with Drillers, obviously the Onipixel team, and he did pretty well there. Him and Warren nearly made the major of Onipixel. That would have been hilarious, but they didn't. 23 years old, currently got a 1.23 rating, complements Demka perfectly. I think it again, it's one of those player profiles where all the role people will really be happy because again, this team makes a lot more sense. I also think the coach, got to talk about TC, haven't we? Passionue. That's so weird. It's so weird that he's the coach for Passionue.
Makes no sense to me. He definitely doesn't speak Ukrainian or Russian, so I mean, they must be. I don't know. I'm curious.
He must have Google Translate on his phone like this.
All
Good
the
job,
time,
guys.
right?
But I think their structure has improved an awful lot over the last 3 months because obviously he's actually had the chance to sort of try and fix things, and I imagine that takes time with that not being your first language and that being communication barriers, etc., etc. I think TNL are more exciting than Passionue, but I want to highlight Passionue because I just think they're an interesting team to keep your eye on. Because obviously you've got the returnees of Waro and Demka back to a Tier 1 event, and we know that they are good for Tier 1 experience, and they will be fine. It will just be interesting to see how Topper, Kavem handle the pressure. I think Jakazmo will be okay, because obviously he's got that major experience, but I think a lot of eyes will be on Kavem in a Tier 2, Tier 3 space. And so he might feel that pressure a little bit, but I hope he rises to the occasion.
So TNL, Passionue, those are the ones that you're keeping an eye on, that you're the most excited about to see here at Blast Bounty.
Yes.
Any other tier 2 teams that maybe you wanted to highlight?
I'll talk about Ecstatic because I like Ecstatic. I don't honestly think they're going to do much, to be completely real with you. But they've got one of the best players in terms of in-game name-wise in Nut Nut on their team.
I'm like, you got
a destroyer.
Cool name. You can stay. Nut Nut for president. There we go.
He's been falling off a little bit recently, I'm going to be completely honest with you. They came 4th at a glitched Masters, that LAN that was in Sweden. I think it was in Jönköping. They came 4th there. I want to say it was in Jönköping.
It was. I'm
cool.
99% sure it was.
They've got Syrah, who obviously we highlighted in the Sell Me This Pro, who I still think is a very underrated player. I just think he complements this team perfectly. I think TMB's calling on this team is really fun. You got to remember that TMB has been around since 2017. So that is, 8 years? And he's 23 years old.
How?
It's cool. I think his calling is really good for this team. They play if you like Danish Counter-Strike, like very methodical, very much like, we're going to take this on this timing, and if you throw one nade that we don't like, we're going to sort of figure it out on the fly, and we're going to really take this area of the map. Inferno is the best example for this. They'll take top brackets, they'll wait. They'll take banana, they'll wait. They'll go back to top brackets a little bit, they wait. It's all by design. Suddenly your rotations are off the move, and then they go. It's brilliant. It's so very Danish. They play the most Danish Counter-Strike ever, and that's a compliment. I think it really suits the way they play. I've been big on Ecstatic for a while because I think Analele is a very good talent. I think Nut Nut is very good, even though he's dropped off form recently. And Christu, Ecstatic were needed in AWPA for a very long time. Christu, another one of these guys that came through the Astralis talent ranks, was one of those guys where we knew he needed an opportunity. I think he's found a very good home in Ecstatic, and hopefully that they are capable of causing upset, which is why I'm mentioning them. And also, for some reason, I've got an affinity towards them. So there you go. Ecstatic are fun. Watch Ecstatic.
Ecstatic are fun. Watch Ecstatic. I have an idea now. Okay, so we've obviously done our sort of pre-blast bounty showcase, but I would love for people that are watching at home and that are watching the show to make suggestions in the comments of when you're watching blast bounty in the next few days and you're like, okay, cool, I like this team or I saw this player. So like, let us know who they are. And then we can kind of do a recap of how they performed at bounty and also like a little bit more of a background. So maybe there's a player that you see because you've not watched tier 2 and you're suddenly like, who is this? I found this interesting. Even if it's a specific moment, you can timestamp that moment. I'd be kind of keen to then come back to the comments and have a little look see at what people are thinking and then kind of, you know, talk about those players. What do you think, B-Dog?
That's fun. We could do like like almost like a history lesson on these players.
Yeah.
And also what we could do, and I could dive into this a bit further, is if you do have specific players, then what I'll do is maybe I'll see if I can prepare something for you where I can see the change in them over the years and what they were when they first came onto the scene versus what they transformed into now. That could be interesting.
That would be pretty cool. What we would need though is your input. So please don't make this awkward and not put anyone in the comments because
Please.
weird for us. I'll literally use my burner accounts and just come in and make stuff up so that we don't look ridiculous. Yeah. I used my official accounts on when I say official, my account with my actual name on HLTV forums the other day, and someone was like, this is not the real tech girl. And everyone was like, yeah, you're not real because you never comment. And I was like, yeah, I'm not real. Turns out it actually is me. So there you go. But I'm always in my alt account. So I think that'd be cool. I'm excited for Blast Bounty. I always like to see new teams in the mix. I think it'll be a fun showcase and just gives us something a little bit different. Because I don't know about you, but I do get a little bit, don't get me wrong, like I love Counter-Strike, but you see the same teams, right? Over and over again at all these big events. I like that Blast Bounty kind of allows for that first start to let some new names into the mix and just to change it up a bit.
It's all about opportunity, and that's what the open circuit was designed to do. So it's nice that Blast have actually adopted that and has given these teams opportunity, because all these teams need is, I know this first bit is online, but literally all these teams need is a little bit of LAN experience, because it just goes an awful long way. And it also, I think from a psychological point of view, those that haven't had LAN before or those who haven't had LAN in a while, when you go there, it reminds you of why you're playing the game in the first place, because it can be monotonous just grinding online. Yeah, that can be the same for casting as well. Day in, day out, you're sat at your desk doing the same thing. And I think when you go to these events, it reminds you and it gives you your purpose back. So I think it's a really good opportunity for all these teams.
It is also supposed to be, the VRS change was meant to create a space where we would see a lot more of these tier 2 teams at LAN. It was meant to open the circuit up. If anything, I think it's shut it right freaking down. But maybe that is actually an episode we need to do. I mean, I've done a lot of VRS conversations on Feed the Trolls, and I think what's quite sad for me is that people don't engage with them. If I look at, like, if Thorin and I do an episode where we just shit on the Mongols, mad views, everyone is commenting. But if we do like a deep dive into VRS, we've done it with NIP, we've done it with Graham from Complexity, where they like talk about some of the pitfalls and what the issues are. It just gets no engagement. It's almost like the general fan doesn't realize that, like, if we don't change the system, we're going to kill Counter-Strike as we know it, which sounds like such an insane thing to say.
It's true, though.
That's the truth. Yeah, it sounds absurd, but like we're literally killing off tier 2 if we're not careful. What a downer to end the episode on.
Done that twice now, back-to-back weeks.
If you like this episode, let us know. Make sure you comment. I'm sorry I made you sad.